Idea Factory and Kabyle Heart are back with another PC port, which is actually kind of nice, because I kind of like some of their JRPGs. They're really interesting, kind of weird. They're not all, like, top-notch, but, like, they're just kind of a little bit strange, and this is definitely no exception. Michael here, and today we're going to be checking out Omega Quintet, which is a JRPG to where you play as idols. It's kind of weird to explain. It's basically their verse maidens, and there's an evil Blair that showed up, and basically only singing and dancing can remove it. Why? Game doesn't explain why. It's literally just an excuse to end up having idle mechanics, but it's actually fairly interesting in the depth that they actually go into in this game, and they actually end up showing out quite a bit of it. It's like, oh hey, they have weapons, they're called microphones, and they have like disc analysis, and you're able to actually create like a stage and stuff. I'll talk about all those in this video, of course, but anyways, we're just checking it out. I've only played a few hours of it, so this is basically just a very early impression. Also, I just realized my mic is clipping. I apologize for that. Two things to note before we continue. One, I apologize if my voice is a little bit weird today. One, I'm trying out some new editing stuff, and number two, also, I've been sick for the last week and a half, and so this is the first video I'm recording, so my voice is very... Oh, I'm just gonna play the intro, sorry. Oh my god, the voice is so loud. Anyways, yeah, so basically, I'm gonna be a little bit rough around the edges today. And then also, I got a review key for this game. I wasn't originally going to end up checking it out, but hey, Ghostlight, who is the publisher for this one in the US, ended up deciding to send me a key. So there we go. We ended up getting it. And so I'm able to end up checking it out before the end of the year, which is quite nice. I was going to end up checking it out in January, but now I get to check it out before the end of the year. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. First off, here is... Wow, they actually never said a voice thing there before. I think I unlocked things, or maybe it just doesn't always do it. I don't know. Anyways, let's go ahead and look at the config real quick. This is the PC version of the game, of course, so there is some PC-specific stuff we'll talk about, but it's got multiple volume sliders, which is always super, super nice. We also have the Japanese language available for people that want that. It is super, super nice for that, but at the same time, I found it annoying. I like the English better, but I think that's mostly because I've been playing a lot of their games in English, and I like a lot of the voice actors that they have. Camera controls, whatever. Then you have your graphics and input. Now, your input device can be changed between the keyboard and the mouse, and you can sort of use both of them. Sometimes it lets you use both of them at the same time, sometimes it doesn't. Like in the main menu, if I'm actually back here, I can use the keyboard and it'll say, hey, do you want to switch it? But you can't switch it like when you're in game in battle, but you can change it when you're in the world map. It's a little bit strange. I think their detection's a little bit off there, but you can remap absolutely everything, including the controller, which is super, super nice. And you're able to, and you're able to change your graphics resolution. And supposedly it supports up to 4K. I don't have that enabled on my machine at the moment, but you're able to actually go up to 4K and everything. And it actually looks fairly decent when you end up rendering it up. It does not, however, have any anti-aliasing or ANSO setting whatsoever, and I wasn't able to get it working in my graphics driver, so I'm assuming that that's just lacking in this game, which makes it look really, really blurry. I'll talk about that when we get into game. Aside from that, we really don't have much options. We have shadow, outline, and effect rendering. And when I actually had display mode in borderless or windowed, it would actually stutter a ton. And so I have to play the game in full screen, which I'm fine with, but that could be a problem for some people. So if you're having problems with the game and you actually have it and you're having problems with stuttering and stuff, go ahead and try to change it to full screen. It might work for you. I don't know. One thing I do have to say though is if you're looking at this game to try and see if you want it, make sure that you're not running on a low-end machine. Make sure you're on at least a mid-end machine to be able to run it properly, because there's no graphics customization whatsoever, and you're not going to be able to make the game run any lighter than it already does. Now for me, the game runs absolutely smoothly, 60 FPS everywhere with the exception of loading stutter, which is just the problem with their Fire engine they've had forever. And so yeah, really the game works. It's just, unfortunately, if you have a low-end machine, it will stutter and sometimes crash in later stages. Anyway, so here we are in our studio slash office. I think they called it an office in the game. And so basically this is where the idols, and you can see some of them roaming around here. So this is Atoa, and you can talk to her and stuff like that. They're just going to have story spoilers, so I'm not really going to talk to too many of them. But yeah, you can end up talking to them, and you're playing as Talked, which is basically a male protagonist character that they end up throwing into the game, which is actually where the story kind of gets fairly interesting. But here you're able to accept missions, you're able to craft, which actually has some fairly interesting stuff in here, so you're able to actually craft quite a few different pieces of equipment. I'm very early on in the game. I think I'm only 6 hours in. But yeah, you can equip different characters with different sort of weapons. Every single character can use every single weapon with the exception of the sword, which only Talked can use swords, and so he gets swords and stuff like that. And yes, he does get to fight. I'll talk about him a little bit. But there's actually some in-depth stuff about the crafting. You're able to end up unlocking new mechanics using play point coins that you end up finding, and various other stuffs, and there's different events that show up, and as you can see, there's different sort of depths of field and things like that, and it actually looks fairly decent. I guess this was a PS4 game originally. I thought it would have been one of their Vita ports, but apparently no, it's actually one of their PS4 games, which is actually kind of nice. And then when you end up going out here, you're able to actually go to the game world. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just start running around one of the areas and start just playing around and kind of going around. I guess we'll go through we'll go around Greenbelt, and I'll just run around and stuff like that. So this is a game that is obviously a JRPG, and you're going to be focused mostly on the story. So let's go ahead and cover that first. The idea of the world is that there's this Blair that showed up. So these guys are like the Blair. They're the enemies of the game. I need to turn down my audio. And they are essentially just an evil monster thing. And I guess they're like a miasma that shows up, and then basically they use singing to get rid of them. And so when they end up singing and dancing and things like that, it removes the Blair. Why, the game actually never explains, and I think it's literally just an excuse to make it so that you play as idols. And so all the characters are called verse maidens, or the main female characters. And so basically they have the ability to sing and make the Blair go away, and not everyone's born with it, and then for some reason when they age up it goes away. And they're literally just doing this to make it so that you have idol characters. And so these are all new idols that you end up getting in the game. There are a few others as well, but obviously I'm not going to be able to show them off for story reasons and stuff like that. Now Takt is Otoha's kind of friend character, which is the one in red. She's a Toha. And so Takt is basically a male character that she's known since childhood, and he's kind of like sucked into this whole ordeal because she wanted to go singing and he followed her because she wanted him to, and she felt more safe with him around. And then basically the Blair showed up, and then they find out she's a verse maiden, and he gets dragged in, and basically he becomes a manager slash bodyguard. And so he is basically the male protagonist character in a lot of those sort of visual novels that you would see in the Idol universe. Now, I don't play a lot of Idol games. I just know of them because I know people who do play them quite a lot. And so basically this game ends up introducing a lot of those sort of idol sort of mechanics while also sort of having a story that is also a JRPG. And it's actually fairly interesting what they end up doing with it. And so the story is basically there is a rival office or whatever that has another idol that's going on. And that's what's going on right now. But I know that the story is probably going to branch off to where the Blair came from. And it has some like drama and stuff like that between what the characters are doing. There is one of the first idols that you play as is Momoka. And she's getting too old to end up doing the idol work or whatever. And so she ends up kind of retiring and everything like that, and she acts as a sub-character. And I don't know anything about anything that goes on in the future, but basically that's the story. And so far it's all right. I mean, it's nothing amazing or interesting in the sense of like, oh my god, the story and everything. You know, it's not something that's going to like break your heart or change the way you look at JRPGs or anything like that. However, it is interesting what they've done with the idea of idols and actually converting it into a combat-centric sort of, I guess, JRPG. And it is turn-based and everything like that, going into the gameplay and stuff. So far, the gameplay I've actually enjoyed the most out of it. Like, that's actually what's actually keeping me going. Like, the story is okay. I think the characters are somewhat interesting. Like, these characters that they have here, I find most of them have really unlikable qualities to them. But I think that's intentional. They're all supposed to have some like major flaws, and they kind of play off of that in these sort of ideas and everything that they end up talking to each other and stuff like that. So it's very much like other compile heart JRPGs that have been released, where basically they focus mostly on the characters themselves, and they're really good at writing good characters and characters that are just interesting, and they all have backstories and stuff. And I haven't gotten far enough to really see much of that. And I hope that there's more of it, and I assume there is. One thing I will mention, though, is the fact that they have, like, no noses terrifies me. Do not look at them from the side, because they are the most terrifying thing I have ever seen. I guess they just wanted their breasts larger than their noses, and they don't have breasts, and so they have no noses. I don't know. But yeah, they're a little bit terrifying. Gameplay-wise, the game is fun, though. I mean, this sort of section here to where we're just walking isn't very interesting, and there's a lot of sections like this, even early on in the game. But you do have a run button. It doesn't actually have an animation or anything, but you are able to run around. You are able to look around. Also, if you try to look under the skirt, apparently they do that. I found that out, but I'm not trying to look up your skirt. I'm trying to look at the building in the background. One thing I did notice is when wandering around is that the background is very, very blurry, and it's very hard to see any detail in the distance. However, there are sections that we'll end up seeing possibly over here that do actually have some decent detail in the distance, and actually just makes it feel like a little bit more of a game world. And it does have a set structure instead of just being like blocks put together. It actually feels like a game world that they built and intentionally put in a way that actually makes sense, which is kind of nice for these types of JRPGs. I kind of like it. So it does feel like you're going around and exploring things. And I've already collected all the items and stuff like that, but they do give you reasons for exploring, and you have different abilities on different characters. For example, what is her? Her name is Kanedeku, I think is how you say it. Yeah, she can't break this one down, but she's able to like break certain objects and push things around and stuff like that because she's the strong character and stuff. So yeah, they actually have some characterization. But when it comes down to actual gameplay, when you run into enemies and stuff like that, you get your normal attacks, and you get your counters attacks, you get counters and stuff. But you have your normal attacks, which is basically just, you know, select a target. But one thing you'll notice is you'll actually notice the colors on the ground. That actually sets how effective your different attacks will be. And so depending on the weapon that they have, they'll actually have different effect ranges. And you can actually look at the enemies and actually look at all their stats, and they'll have different attacks and different ranges that are actually useful. Let's look at one. So this one's like a ranged one, so they're good at attacking things that are far away, while they will do less damage and have less hit rate on things that are close to them. And this is relevant because you can actually move your character around, and so I can actually move my character to the back or the front if I wanted to. You can also change... sorry, that was actually, like I said, I've had a cold for a while, and so that was my coughing fit. Apologies. Back on topic. And that's actually relevant because you can actually switch over your manager character as well, who actually gives different buffs and pairing effects. And that's actually how they do their whole, whatchamacallit, affection meter in this game and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of mechanics that we've seen in other Compile Heart JRPGs, but you also have a bunch of different skills. You have weapon skills, which are going to be your melee style skills. They're just going to use whatever, and you have different synergies. You can actually see a follow and a link skill. And so if I use other fist melee skills while actually using that one in combo, it'll increase the damage of each skill in the order. And so you can actually kind of power up how you want to do your different attacks. But you also have different skills that are like, let's say, Incinerate, for example. Actually, I'm going to use a different character to show off those. But yeah, as I'm using different ones of these, I can actually have different AoE skills and things. And then I can also hit Pursuit when they actually do that, and then the manager comes in, talked, and he runs in and actually uses effects. But she actually has a bunch of magic spells, and so there's different ones like healing, and then there's also different offensive. One thing that I did forget, though, is I set this one up to be all support, but I do have one attack spell, which is Sorcerer Sword. The interesting thing about these combos is you can't actually use the same skill like just a bunch of times, and so you won't actually be skill spamming, which I've actually found to be quite nice in a JRPG, because a lot of these JRPGs you do end up just skill spamming a lot of the times, and they actually have a nice variety, and they actually have a really cool leveling system when it comes down to it. Now these are some super easy skills and fights and stuff like that, so I'm not really going to run into it too much, but you can actually overkill things, and you can actually run into some fights that actually lasted quite a decent amount of time, and it was actually enjoyable to go through and be like, all right, well, how can I finish these guys off? And stronger enemies will actually have a lot of different status effects that they can apply. And it's really easy to get rid of status effects, but it's also really easy to apply them. So, for example, you could end up poisoning enemies very, very quickly and use that as a kind of like part of your tactic, which is actually a fairly interesting thing that I think they'll probably expand on a little bit later. The game is still extremely easy for me right now, and I'm just running through these battles. They do have an escape option, and since these guys are weak, I'm just going to escape immediately. But when you actually go into the character skills and stuff like that, they actually have an entire like leveling thing. So you actually have a certain amount of skills that you can set. So I actually have more skills in these characters, but you unlock more skill sets, and they give you quite a bit to actually, you know, set up. Like this is the default. Actually, no, I think I expanded her set by 1. But, you know, you actually get quite a few slots. And so it's not like you have, like, no slots whatsoever. One thing that is kind of unfortunate is that I don't have anything for Talked yet, but he actually has a disc analysis as well, to where I can actually increase his action count. To where when you saw he went into Pursuit and stuff, he was actually only able to act a certain number of times, and you actually increase that. But every character has a disc analysis, which is basically a skill tree, and you're able to learn different skills for every single different weapon and different types of spells and things. Now, they do have limited spells and weapons that they can use. For example, this character, Nene, is able to learn a lot of different sort of weapon skills, but her primary ones is going to be ranged weapons. Like, she can use special, like, I guess, ranged weapon skills that the other characters cannot learn, or at least not the characters that I have unlocked. There are going to be more of them that I don't have yet. And she has a bunch of spear skills, I noticed. But she also has a bunch of spells that I didn't see on the other characters. Now, I could be wrong about that. It could just be the way I'm looking at it, and maybe you're able to learn all the skills. But it does seem like some of the specials and stuff that you do learn later on in the game, and some of the other special skills. Also, she's supposed to have a steel skill, and I don't know where it's at. I don't know. But you're able to increase your skill slots and stuff like that through this system as well. Some of them are just stat increases as well. I don't think she has any. Oh, there's one. Yeah, stats up. So that would just increase stats, like the base stats when you end up learning them. But yeah, I have 55 points, and you need quite a bit of them to end up learning. Some of these ones close to the center don't require very many points, and so you can unlock a lot of skills very, very early on and have a good variety for combos, which I think is how they intend to do it. But once you end up getting into these later stages, building them up, one takes longer because you have to level up more. But there's other ones to where it's like, you know, just the stat increases, for example, which I think are like the ones where you're supposed to learn last. They require a ton of points and stuff. So to unlock everything is going to take quite a bit, but at the same time, you know, it's kind of nice to be able to pick and choose what you want. And if you want a specific character using a specific weapon, you can end up just changing it whatsoever. Now, I've stuck into what they gave the character by default, just because I kind of feel like it fits their character the best, but you can switch it around and change it whenever you want. The game also has a bunch of outfit and stuff like that. They also have mic skills that you can end up looking at. I think you learn skills not only through that, but you also increase their effectiveness by increasing proficiencies with weapons, and you also have the equipment stuff that I was talking about in a second. So you actually have outfits. Sorry, I showed her underwear for a second. I mean, it's kind of weird in the world map. You can't actually look up their skirt. I never actually intended to. I was trying to look at the buildings. That's why I did it that way. But then you can just go in here and look at them anyway. So I don't get why, but anyways, you also have outfit things, which I don't have any other outfits unlocked yet. Maybe I'll end up going back to the base, but basically you're able to give them amps, and so these amps actually add in different stats and stuff like that, and this is where these sort of in-depth mechanics come into play, to where you're able to actually customize the characters quite a bit when it comes down to their stats and the skills that they have and the different sort of outfits that they have and the look that they give. And I found that really, really interesting, and you're able to customize how you place them on the battlefield as well. So if I go over to my change order, I can actually switch over. The controls are a little awkward. I have to like push the button and then use the bumpers to move them around and stuff. I'm sorry. I really shouldn't be recording while I'm sick, but anyways, so you're able to like customize where they're at and platform and stuff. And so there's actually quite a bit of different stuff that you can do. Since it is a classic turn-based system to where it is, you know, it's not like a semi-tactical stuff that they've ended up doing in some other games like the Neptunia games. It actually has a set path, so you can actually strategize a decent amount beforehand to where you want your character's position, depending on the enemies you're going to fight, because certain enemies will have different AoE attacks. Like the little bird guys, the reason why my characters are staggered that way is because they were using an AoE skill that like hits two enemies if I have my characters too close together, and so I staggered them, and that allowed me to go over. And there's also different things on the map and stuff like that you'll unlock. Like I showed it earlier to where Deku wasn't able to use it, or Kana. I forgot what she's freaking named, but anyways, yeah, you're unable to do them yet, and you have to complete quests and things like that. So the game does have quests and missions. If I go ahead and, well, there's the map. That's the map that I have so far. You do have to uncover the map, by the way, and so you'll see a lot of little shadow points and stuff like that, and there's a ton of different areas in the map that you're able to explore. When I originally saw the list on the little promotional video, do I have an escape item? I don't think I do. Maybe I should have just used that escape thing back there. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But one thing that I was actually surprised about is that going back to areas, there's actually a ton of different like routes that you're going to be able to take later on. Some of them just lead to items, which is no big deal. But most of them actually do have some sort of relevant path. Like this pathway originally wasn't available. And so it was back here, right? Hopefully it was back here. I don't know. I'm just getting completely lost now. Yes, there it is. But yeah, they actually have different pathways that take you to different areas on the map, which is kind of nice. Some of the areas are small. This one's fucking gigantic, and some of them are supposed to end up getting pretty big. But any of those points or any save points, you're able to just kind of go and exit. You can save any point in the map, but at the same time, you're not able to save when you're actually in a dungeon until you're at a save point. Also, we can actually go into the town. This is where you can talk to NPCs and get quests. And so, for example, this character's like, the medicine plant's got a hell of a dick name, but its effectiveness is for sure. I think they're supposed to show an accent there. The game has a personality to it as well, which I actually like. Really heals ya. Ha ha ha. That's funny. I'm supposed to go get herbs for him from certain enemies and stuff like that. So yeah, you'll actually talk to NPCs here and they'll give you quests. These quests are optional. However, there are some quests that are not optional. And so if I go ahead and, oops, nope, I want to, okay, well now I lost my menu. There we go. And then you end up going back to the office. You actually get your main missions and stuff like that. Goodbye, Momo. Here you actually get your missions, and these are like the main story and sub-story missions, and so if you want actual story, you got to do these ones. And so when you actually accept these, you'll get story, different stuff. When you actually go to the map, you'll get different story stuff, and then when you complete it and come back, it'll give you different story stuff. And there's different sort of side stories that are just kind of going along that have just randomly popped up while they've been playing as well, between different things. And so it's constantly giving you little bits of story. It starts really heavily in the story, and it takes a long time to get started. And I'm like, it says almost 7 hours into the game right now, and don't know where the story is going. Right now, I know that there's a rivalry going on, and it's so like an idol thing, but yeah, and I mean, that's generally my opinion so far in the game. I'm enjoying it so far. Like, it's just fun to play, and it has a pleasant atmosphere. It has quite a bit of humor in it and stuff, and I really like the personality that they end up kind of giving the game itself. The game is it sort of takes itself serious, but only serious enough that it, feels like a story, but everything about it is ridiculous. The idea of you just being a character that goes into like this whole idol situation is kind of weird, to where it's like, oh hey, they gotta be idols, but they're also like superheroes sort of thing. And they have a bunch of different stuff like, oh hey, I unlocked stuff for this, cool. I'm never gonna use this feature. But they have stuff like this to where I can like create a thing, and we're just gonna call it something weird like Pabaloo. And so they make this thing to where, yeah, sure, I'll name it Pabaloo, but you're able to like make an entire video, and you're able to edit it and like put in different shorts and stuff like that. And so it's like, oh hey, let's say I want, different vocals to be in here. So it's like, oh hey, I want this intro, and I don't want this character in there and this character in there, or I want these characters in there, or maybe I don't want this intro entirely. And you can actually like go through and edit the way that the members are set up and everything, and you can remove characters from the performance or take them away, or whatever. And it's like you can actually edit all of these as well, so you can edit their positioning, and it's super bizarre, and it actually makes a video at the end. It's super weird and bizarre, but like it's just another one of those things to where they ended up adding into the whole concept of it. The characters are idols, which I don't really find idols all that particularly interesting. However, it's really, really cool to see what they've done with it, and you can actually change in a bunch of different stuff. Like, let's say I wanted to watch it, and then it'll just play in the background, and it has music and stuff like that. But yeah, and so they actually like dance and stuff like that. I'm not going to watch it because I don't care. No, I don't want to save it because I don't actually care. But yeah, and then while it's actually playing, you're able to do small edits and transfers and things like that. Like, it has an entire editing system in it. It's hilariously awesome for people that actually want that sort of thing. For me, I don't care. I really don't. It has gameplay effects. It gives you small bonuses and stuff like that. I have not actually gone through and made a video. As you saw, I had no clue what I was doing. But yeah, it's just the extent that they ended up going through with the whole idea of them being idols is actually kind of cool. And I like the storyline so far, how it's basically there's a rivalry, and I guess that's something that would happen, or I guess it's something that happens in Idol, or Idol like VNs and stuff like that, or at least that's what I was told by people that do read those, and so I guess that's a thing. Also, here's where I can order outfits and things like that. I only have one other outfit unlocked so far, and I'm 7 hours in. Supposedly you get, a bunch of them. Also, I'm really excited to get new boxers for Talked, just because I think it's hilarious. But yeah, and then you also have a repair system. Oh yeah, the outfits can break and stuff like that. I've kept them repaired, so I don't actually know what it does. But apparently, as they kind of break and stuff like that, I've leveled them up so they don't break very quickly. But as you level them up, you're able to add in new slots for their amps and things like that, which is adding resistances and special effects and things. And then also you're able to make it so they don't break as quick. But when they do break, they lose all those bonuses, and they have decreased defenses and decreased confidence, and you can't use live concert modes or harmonics. Harmonics is a more advanced feature where basically the manager is able to kind of change up how the characters do combos and stuff like that. It's more interesting, but I haven't really played around with it all too much. But yeah, I mean, overall, so far, as a sort of conclusion to this sort of thing, I mean, it's all right so far. It's okay. It's nothing that's like mind-blowing, but if you like compile heart like JRPGs, it's a good one. Like, it's one of their more mechanically in-depth ones, which was incredibly kind of interesting. Like, that was surprising to me, because when I originally saw it, I wasn't going to end up checking it out. Originally, I was going to wait on it and be like, I'll pick it up later, maybe at some other time. Also, while you're playing on these fights and stuff like that, you may have heard it, to where there's sort of like an announcer going on and everything. Sorry, once again. Cold. But yeah, the announcer will end up going up on the background and adds like just a little bit of personality. Like, the game has a ton of personality, as most of their JRPGs do, and that's kind of nice. And once again, it was very surprising to find out that this was one of their more mechanically in-depth, and it just has a lot going on for it. And it does have defend and things like that. And it has a bunch of different sort of ways that you can min-max things. Like, you can overkill enemies and stuff like that for extra bonuses. And so fighting weaker enemies isn't always, pointless. You also are able to take all of your drops and things like that you get, and you're able to dismantle it and put it into your crafting, or use it for different stuff. Talked is able to go in and add in defenses and increase resistances. She didn't actually get poisoned because I was using Talked. Nice. And I think she also has poison resist. I think they all have poison resist. Oh, she got blinded though, which decreases her accuracy. So yeah, it's a decent JRPG if you're into it. You have to like the cutesy stuff to actually get into it, I think. Also, I'm going to overkill right there. Overkill. And then it'll give me a little bonus at the end for that. But yeah, and there's also affection, depending on how you pair tact up with characters and things. And yeah, I don't know. It's all right. That's my final conclusion so far. I mean, I'm super dizzy this week and everything because I've had that cold, but I've been kind of playing this off and on since I got a review key for it. And it's all right. It's actually an enjoyable experience. So if you like Compile Heart JRPGs, then I recommend it. If you're somebody who's not into this sort of thing, then don't even look into it. If you're worried about the whole idol thing, kind of like taking too much precedent into like the story and stuff like that, I don't really care about idols whatsoever. And so realistically, I don't care about that aspect, but I think it's really, really interesting on a game design standpoint to see how they've integrated those different elements into a combat-centric JRPG. Also, I'm just using basic attacks right now because I'm not really focused very well. Once again, I apologize, I'm sick, and I'm actually about to cough right now. Sorry, I don't know how I'm going to edit out those coughs because we have gameplay in the background. I'll probably just make it really quiet or just completely edit it out or something like that. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this one. If you're looking forward to a full review of this one, I'm going to do one, but it's going to take a long while for me to get one. I'm currently going through a lot of stuff in life right now, and so I have to get all that sorted out, and I have a bunch of other video stuff that I also need to get done. I mean, I still haven't done my Tales of Berseria review because the day I was going to record it, I was just randomly coughing throughout the entire thing. Like, I spent 2 hours trying to record that video, and I just kept coughing just out of nowhere, and I do not cough during a full review. That is not a thing I would accept. And so, yeah, also, I just finished a quest by finding an item I needed to find, I think. So, yay, I can go back to the area and do stuff. But yeah, and then you also run into these areas where you can't pass it yet because you don't know how to get rid of the Blair. And it's like, oh, okay, well, fine, I'll go back around. It's kind of annoying to run into dead ends. But yeah, hopefully I'll be back into making videos again soon and getting all this stuff sorted out. So far, game's all right. I mean, that's really all I got. I think my final review will probably be definitely more in-depth than this. This is just kind of a lazy look at it, just to check it out before, you know, Christmas and the end of the year and everything, because everything else I've got to work on now is like my end of the year videos and just trying to get life sorted out. So yeah, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully my voice sounds okay. I can hear it kind of fading away right now, and my throat actually hurts a lot right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and log out. Peace out.